I was ready to divorce my husband. Not almost ready. Ready for real. Papers signed by my lawyer, a date circled in red on the calendar, my wedding ring tucked into a jewelry box I never liked, and a strange sense of relief that washed over me every time I imagined my name without his last name attached to it like a burden I'd volunteered to carry. Bruno was no longer my husband in any living sense. He was noise. A shadow drifting through our house with the scent of office air and too much silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that squeezes your lungs until answering "Are you okay?" feels like lifting a car. I wasn't going to make a scene. No plates thrown, no speeches drafted, no social media confessions. I was going to hand him the papers and keep moving. Simple. Surgical. Done. Or so I told myself, the way people fold a letter they never planned to mail. That Friday he invited friends over to watch a match, something he hadn't done in years, which already felt like a sign the universe was bored and ready to meddle. I did what a sensible woman does when her house turns into a club she didn't join. Greeted quickly, went upstairs, slipped into pajamas and stacked a wall of indifference around my evening. A podcast. A book. A small fortress of not caring. Then I went downstairs for water. Just that, water, like fate has never used thirst as a plot device. Halfway down the stairs I heard my name. "How's Camila doing?" Marcelo asked. I froze. My body decided hydration was optional. Bruno took several seconds to answer. Long enough for me to congratulate myself for feeling nothing. Long enough for a lie to stretch and yawn. When he finally spoke, his voice came low, unsteady. Human for the first time in years. "Man, I ruined everything with her." The step pressed under my foot, or maybe it was me pressing through something I didn't have a name for. He kept talking like a man kneeling at a confessional built too late. "I was the worst husband. I know. Every morning I wake up and think about what I did to us." 3 years of silence and he chooses an audience. Not me. Then Marcelo asked what happened the way people ask even when they've already guessed. Bruno sighed, a sound I knew too well, the prelude to "It's nothing," which had always been everything. "I fell into depression," he said. I closed my eyes. Not from empathy. From irony. My husband had watched me like I was the problem, as if my presence was a stressor he needed to buffer. And yet the sinkhole was inside him. He described the toxic boss, the humiliation stacked like dirty dishes, the anxiety that woke him at 3, the insomnia that turned him into a tenant haunting our home. Meetings replayed in an endless loop, drafts written and rewritten, the kind of invisible labor that ruins you precisely because you're convinced you should be able to carry it alone. He could have told me. He could have told me 100 times. But pride locks the door and calls it protection. I didn't tell her because... He paused. I heard this part standing still, hand on the banister like a witness holding onto the rail of a ship. Because she's always been too strong. I was afraid of disappointing her. I thought I was protecting her. Too strong. Feminine strength. A useful alibi for masculine silence. Dress the truth in chivalry and even abandonment sounds noble. "Marriage is partnership," Ricardo murmured, stating the obvious like a prayer. Bruno let out a tired honesty. I tried to protect her. And in the process, I lost. On the stairs in the half-dark, 2 things took their seats in me. He didn't cheat. He underestimated me. The first felt clinical. The second felt like a bruise that wouldn't fade. Not betrayal but dismissal. Being loved but not trusted, present but not confided in, the kind of neglect that insists it's love with good intentions. Before the silence moved in, we had been irritatingly happy. The kind of couple people glance at and look away from because envy makes the eyes sting. Inside jokes, quick laughter, casual touches, a faith in tomorrow that made today generous. Then one day he came home wearing quiet like a second skin. That quiet built a room inside our house and locked me out. Grief without a body. I tried. God, I tried. I organized dinners he ate while scrolling. I suggested therapy, he said he was fine. I asked, he said nothing. I begged, he said I wouldn't understand. I offered doctors, medication, a map. He refused to admit we were lost. The final straw wasn't a scream. It was ordinary. Our anniversary. I set the table like a small altar to hope. He came in, looked at the candles, the flowers, the plates and said, "Oh, it's today?" The cold traveled politely through me. The next morning I called my lawyer. Back to the staircase. "She looks at you with sadness." "People who feel nothing don't look that way," Ricardo said. Sadness. My name wrapped in honesty. I stood. Not dramatically. Not like the woman in the movie who storms in with a monologue. I walked into the living room the way a person walks into weather they can't change. The match flickered on the TV. The room had too much air and not enough oxygen. Bruno's face went pale. Camila, how long were you there? Long enough. His friends left like men who had accidentally witnessed a crime they weren't sure how to report. Then there were two. Two people who had already quit but hadn't filed their resignation. He cried. I didn't. Someone had to narrate cleanly. Why didn't you tell me? I thought you couldn't handle it. I laughed. Not from amusement, from the absurd geometry of it. 3 years of carrying a relationship by myself, and this man believed I couldn't handle the truth. I told him about the divorce. The papers. The meeting, the pen without a cap, the way relief had started parking itself outside my chest like a car with the engine idling. He fell apart. He asked for forgiveness repeatedly, like the word itself might do the labor time refused to do. His vulnerability came late, but it came true. And I did something I didn't know I would do. I didn't leave that night. He had started therapy, changed departments, seen a doctor, begun treatment for depression. He was trying to become someone I could recognize without squinting. I was tired in the bone marrow way. But I wasn't empty. The embers were still warm even if the fire had gone out. That's the inconvenient truth no one advertises. Love doesn't change from on to off. Sometimes it reduces to coals that still glow when a name is spoken in the right light. What do you want? He asked. I don't know, I said, and it was the most honest answer available. I didn't want the marriage we had. That one was already a ghost. I wanted the version of us that would tell the truth before it calcified. I wanted a home where silence didn't pretend it was care. I wanted him to understand that keeping me safe from his pain had only taught me I wasn't worth his trust. We made an agreement, unromantic and clean. Radical honesty. We would say hard things quickly, not let them rot in the back of our mouths. Shared responsibility. His mental health was his to manage, but ours to understand. Mine was mine, but not mine alone. No silent heroism. No noble lies. No protecting the other person from reality by excluding them from it. Professional help, individually and together, because love is not a substitute for tools. There were no celebratory dinners. We went to therapy and told our therapist that we intended to try. 2 months have passed. The story isn't miraculous. There is no montage with soft music and a cleaned-up kitchen. What we have is different. A relationship with scar tissue. Something sturdier than what we built when we were innocent and therefore careless. We text during the day about nothing and about everything. He tells me when a meeting sets his hands shaking. I tell him when his lateness feels like the old neglect knocking at the door. We name it. Sometimes that is enough. Sometimes it's only a start. There are nights he wakes at 3 and doesn't pretend it's indigestion. He sits at the edge of the bed, breathing, counting, then nudges my shoulder and says, "It's loud in my head," and I answer, "I'm here." There are mornings I feel the old sadness like a tide and I tell him, and he brings coffee and puts a note under the cup that says, "Not wait. Whether. We can wait it out." I didn't tear up the divorce papers out of love the way novels teach you to. I tore them because, for the first time in 3 years, he looked at me without running calculations about whether I was too strong to need him or too fragile to help him carry anything at all. He looked at me like a person. And I finally named his silence correctly. It wasn't d'amour. It was illness. Illness cannot be cured by abandoning the patient. It also cannot be cured by pretending there is no fever. We are not saints. We are people building a bridge while standing on it. Sometimes marriages end. Sometimes they change shape. Sometimes they die and are resurrected, not beautifully, not with trumpets, but with work that leaves your hands sore. We are not the couple we were. We are something else. Fewer fireworks and more lanterns. Fewer promises and more practices. Less idealization, more humanity. We have rules now, like road signs we actually follow. We put names on the calendar for therapy and don't cancel. We say, "I'm at capacity," before resentment writes the sentence for us. We do check-ins on Sunday nights where questions are ordinary and merciless. What did you avoid saying this week? What did you need that you didn't ask for? Where did you choose silence and call it kindness? We answer badly sometimes. We try again. He tells his friends now when they ask how he is, that he is in treatment, that it is helping, that he is embarrassed it took this long to speak. He doesn't call me strong, like a compliment that obstructs intimacy. He calls me honest, like a door we can both walk through. I don't call him brave for doing the bare minimum of health. I call him responsible when he takes his meds and makes his appointments and tells me when the fog recedes. The praise is specific. The work is too. There is a Saturday routine we didn't have before. He buys bread from the market we used to pass without stopping. I brew coffee strong enough to argue with. We sit on the floor with our backs against the couch like college kids, sharing the dumbest details of the week because they matter, because in the end intimacy is a sum of such trivia. One afternoon he says, "I thought I was keeping you safe," and I say, "You were keeping me out," and he nods. And we let the silence be a guest, not a verdict. Do we kiss in the kitchen sometimes? Yes. Is the kiss a guarantee? No. Guarantees are for appliances. We have something better. A record of showing up. Not always pretty, but consistent enough that hope can sit down without checking the exits. There are days the depression wins around. We don't call it a failure. We call it data. We adjust the day. Soup instead of plans. A walk instead of a dinner. The kindness is not dramatic, but it is a muscle we keep using. 2 months is nothing and it is everything. Enough to believe that the shape of a life can change with small honesties repeated. Not enough to feel safe in the way we wish safety worked. Permanent, unconditional, guaranteed. But the truth is that safety in love has always been a verb. Stay, tell, repair. Not once, not theatrically, but repeatedly until a new pattern replaces the old one, and even then not because the past has been erased, but because the present keeps choosing itself out loud. Would you have stayed or signed? People think there is a correct answer, that dignity lives only on one side of the line. They are wrong. Dignity lives where the truth is told and the work is done. Mine is here for now, where illness is named and care is not confused with control, where strength is not a shield against intimacy, where love is less a feeling than a practice of attention. If that stops being true, the papers will still be in the drawer. The pen will still write. Until then, we keep speaking before the silence does it for us.